Late last week, Governor J.B. Pritzker joined officials in Kankakee County to cut the ribbon on a $2 billion electric vehicle battery plant from a Chinese company called Gotion. And they're looking to spend $2 billion on this facility. But they're getting $500 million worth, if not more, in various tax credits and incentives from state and local governments. Well, what's this Chinese company really doing here, and what kind of questions are there? To talk more about this is Mark Glennon. He is the founder of Wirepoints. He joins us now at Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. Mark, thanks for taking time. Of course, a lot of money, a lot of tax incentives here. Jobs, I think they said 2,600 jobs. But some concerns about this Chinese-linked company getting these kind of tax credits in Illinois. What's going on?
Yeah, it's quite a controversy in other states where Gotion is also building things, in Michigan in particular. Actually, the $500 million that Illinois is putting into it is just the start. That, of course, comes from state taxpayers. But the extraordinary thing is that under the federal tax credits, this is part of the Inflation Reduction Act, enormous credits are available. And the source that we have indicates that these will come to some $6.5 billion over the first 5 years. $6.5 billion for a plant that's only going to cost $2 billion to build. Now, this is tracked closely by a company called Good Jobs First. It's a think tank in Washington, and they have detailed reports out this. I spoke to them about their estimate. It's all based on a formula of the capacity of the plant. But these are astonishing amounts to subsidize in any event. Just the $500 million from the state is $200,000 per job, which is very high in this industry.
So obviously the tax incentive is something that you can pick apart and question whether or not it's justifiable. We've had a lot of questions about the EDGE tax credit in Illinois and how it may produce short-term jobs, but in the long term, are those jobs sustainable without those tax credits? Same thing can go for the conversation about tax credits for renewable energy programs in general. Are they sustainable in the long run, or are they only popular because they're getting these tax credits? So there's that conversation to be had, Mark. But obviously, we've got this company having come from a Chinese company, but aren't all companies out of China, like, they have to give the keys to the store over to the Chinese Communist Party?
That's my opinion. Now, online, you can find a lot of criticism of Gotion, particularly in Michigan, because this has become very controversial there. Gotion is alleged, you'll find these stories in many places on the web, Daily Caller, Daily Signal, for instance, and Fox News, others, of particular ties that this company has to the Chinese Communist Party, individuals there. Now, I don't know how much of that is true. I'm not going to speculate on that, but I am certain that that general risk that you described is there. And just a couple of months ago, the Chinese government put out a directive to all its citizens saying, we expect you to spy this is part of your obligation to your nation. And they offered rewards and such for it. So, this is suspicious.
Mark Glennon with us. He is founder of Wirepoints here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And we're discussing the $500 million in tax incentives for a $2 billion plant in Kankakee County that is going to manufacture these EV batteries, essentially. Now, this is, REV tax credits a part of this as well, and that's the Reimagine electric vehicles. We've seen other instances of foreign companies. I think a French company, Lion Electric, got some tax credits to, start up a electric bus manufacturing facility. But Illinois itself has been kind of slow to adopt and attract a lot of these types of businesses despite these tax credits. We've seen other companies go to other states, like in Indiana, for instance. Even though we have these tax credits, what do you think are some of the reasons businesses are making their decisions to go to one state or the other?
Well, they are induced by the amount of credits and the business climate and everything else that's given by the state. This was a central part of course, the Pritzker administration's they called it an industrial policy to attract electric vehicle and battery makers here. But they've been striking out. They've had a very poor record, I think, in the last 13 or so. Cranes reported that last 13 big announcements, Illinois got none of them. So obviously there's concern that Illinois kind of rushed into this and overspent on it. And certainly the federal government is overspending on this, in my opinion. And there's a big push to repeal entirely the Inflation Reduction Act, so-called Inflation Reduction Act, where these credits were granted. Republicans voted against it unanimously when it first passed. And somebody's going to need to take a close look at this because it's just crazy.
Mark, another tax credit story that we're going to touch on in the next segment deals with the Invest in Kids tax credit, which is the Invest in Kids Act, allowing for private donors to give to a fund that then granting organizations can draw from to give scholarships to families to send their kids to a school of their choice. Of course, that program has been around for almost 5 years now. It's set to expire at the end of this year if lawmakers don't approve it. I guess if you could, is that worthy of renewing? And how do you compare and contrast that type of tax credit for private donors to give school scholarships to, a tax credit for a business to bring in jobs or to set up an EV power plant, for instance?
It's almost laughable, Greg, to compare those. Of course, the Invest in Kids Act is a tiny school choice program that we have that gives scholarships to a few thousand per year. And yes, it's due to expire. We don't know whether Pritzker is going to agree to its renewal. It's got national attention right now because of the embarrassment put on it by the head of the Chicago Teachers Union. Stacey Davis Gates was found out to be sending her child to a private school after calling private schools racist institutions and people who support school choice fascists and such. So she's been on CNN, Fox, CNN, and many other national outlets being embarrassed by this. She's basically making a case for school choice. Hopefully that will have an effect.
Mark Glennon, founder of Wirepoints, greatly appreciate you taking the time as always. And I imagine we'll touch on these issues and other issues. Wirepoints, of course, they do a job of looking at data, analyzing the data, putting it out there in very simple terms. And you guys also aggregate a whole bunch of news that people need to know, not just from Illinois, but elsewhere. Give us details on how people can get that stuff.
Thanks so much, Greg. Take care.
You too. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Again, Mark Glennon with Wirepoints. All right, stay tuned. We got more to get to here on